New Maid saw. Everyone ignore the CEO's autistic daughter, until she asked her to dance with me. The Hartley estate rose like a quiet cathedral on the hills of Boston, bathed in the amber glow of late afternoon. A grand stone manor framed by ivy-covered columns and glass-paneled doors. Inside, the chandelier-lit ballroom shimmered with soft music, polished shoes, and curated smiles. It was the annual Hartley & Co. investor reception, a night where fortunes mingled and expectations tiptoed behind champagne flutes. Chloe Sanders adjusted the front of her crisp uniform, tucking a loose strand of blonde hair into the bun secured neatly at her nape. First day on the job. The agency had said, private estate function, but nothing had prepared her for this. The formality, the frost beneath the elegance. She weaved through the crowd with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, eyes scanning velvet gowns and cufflinks that sparkled beneath crystal lights. There was a scent of lavender in the air, but beneath it, something colder, something untouched. Then she saw her. In the far corner of the ballroom, almost swallowed by shadows, a little girl sat cross-legged by a silk-draped window. Her pink dress was rumpled at the hem. Her halo of blonde curls shimmered as she turned a small music ring in her hands. Again, and again. Her eyes never lifted. Not to the people, not to the music. No one else saw her. Chloe's brow furrowed. She looked around. The servers passed without pause. The guests never glanced her way. She leaned toward the woman coordinating the staff. "Excuse me, who's that little girl?" The woman barely turned her head. "Miss Amelia, Mr. Hartley's daughter. She's all by herself. She prefers it that way. Just leave her be. She doesn't like people." Chloe said nothing, but the tightness in her chest lingered. She returned to her work, but her gaze kept drifting to that corner. To the girl, to the silence around her. When the ballroom lights dimmed and a string quartet began a graceful waltz, the guests flowed like silk onto the dance floor. Chloe paused at the edge with her tray now empty. Amelia hadn't moved. Still, turning that little ring, still untouched. She set the tray down quietly. With light steps, Chloe crossed the ballroom, her shoes a hush against the polished floor. She crouched beside the girl, careful not to startle her. "Hi," she said gently. "I'm Chloe." No response. Just the soft click of the spinning ring. Chloe paused. Then, slowly, she extended her hand, not to grab, but simply to offer. "Would you like to try dancing with me?" For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the ring stopped turning. Amelia's fingers hovered, and then, barely, reached. Her small hand rested in Chloe's. Chloe stood, holding the hand as if it were made of glass. She led Amelia gently toward the edge of the dance floor, far from the crowd, just close enough for the music to reach them. She began to sway, just a soft back and forth, guiding without pressure. Amelia stood stiff at first, but with the next measure, her foot moved, a half step, then another. A rhythm formed. Then the ballroom stilled. Not the music, not the movement, but everything else. Conversations paused, glasses lowered. A hush fell over the room like snow. Even the violinists seemed to soften their strings. At the edge of the crowd stood a man in a tailored charcoal suit, his gaze locked forward, a wine glass forgotten in his grip. Liam Hartley, CEO, widower, father. He didn't blink. His daughter, who hadn't let anyone near her in years, was holding hands with a stranger and dancing. His knuckles whitened around the glass, his jaw flexed, his face unreadable. Grief, awe, fear. Across the floor, the girl in pink turned beneath Chloe's steady hand. And for the first time that evening, Amelia smiled. Faint, fleeting, real. The music carried on, but another melody, quieter, more fragile, had begun to rise. A language of rhythm and trust whispered into the space between them. Where silence had lived for too long, something had just stepped in. Something like hope. The guests had long since departed, the music faded, and the ballroom was quiet once more. Empty glasses were gathered, crumbs swept away, the chandeliers now dimmed to a soft glow. Chloe walked back into the kitchen, heart still fluttering from the moment on the dance floor. She half expected someone to scold her for crossing a line. Instead, the butler, an older man with a kind but formal air, glanced up and gave her a small, surprising smile. "You're the first one to make her smile," he said simply. Chloe blinked. I'm sorry if I stepped out of line." He shook his head. "You stepped in, Miss Sanders, where most people walk around her." Chloe looked down at her hands, still remembering the tiny warmth of Amelia's fingers. "Does she ever talk?" she asked quietly. "Not in years," the butler said. "Amelia's been different since birth. Diagnosed early. Sound and rhythm seem to calm her. She doesn't do well with loud voices or touch. Most just avoid her." There was no judgment in his tone, just quiet sadness, as if he'd lived among these silences too long. Later that evening, as Chloe was gathering her things to leave, a voice stopped her. "I'd like you to stay." She turned. Liam Hartley stood at the hallway's edge, shirt sleeves rolled, jacket over one arm. His face unreadable, his voice steady. "Sir?" Chloe asked. "You handled her with care," he said. "Most people treat her like a problem to be solved. You didn't. That means something." Chloe hesitated. "I didn't do anything special." "You didn't look away," he replied. "That's rare enough." A pause. Then, "I'm offering you a long-term position here. Permanent, if you're willing." Chloe searched his expression for any hint of what this truly meant, but there was only quiet gravity in his words. She nodded slowly. "I'm willing." That night, unable to sleep, Chloe wandered the second floor to familiarize herself with the house. The corridor was lined with framed sketches, furniture designs, pencil renderings of arches and chairs. Subtle beauty, all hand-drawn. She passed by Amelia's room and noticed the door slightly ajar. Inside, the lights were dim, and a small screen glowed in the corner. Amelia stood in front of it barefoot, pink nightgown brushing the floor. On the screen, a grainy video played. A woman in a white tutu spinning gracefully on a grand stage, arms curved like wings. A ballerina, graceful, strong. The woman looked just like the girl in the room, if she had grown up. Amelia stood still for a moment, then began to sway, mimicking the movements. Not perfectly, not with polish, but with effort, with memory. Chloe remained outside the doorway, watching, unmoving. She didn't know the full story yet, only fragments. But something about this child, dancing alone to a ghost from a screen, told her more than any words ever could. The house was full of expensive things, polished wood, velvet curtains, gold-rimmed frames. But what echoed most was the absence of touch, of voice, of warmth. And yet here, in the quiet dark, Amelia was dancing. And Chloe knew, without being told, that this was only the beginning. Morning light spilled softly into the sunroom, filtered through high-arched windows and gauzy curtains that swayed like whispers in the breeze. Amelia sat cross-legged on the carpet, her hands turning the tiny silver handle of a music box. It played the same delicate melody over and over, high notes falling like glass rain. Chloe had heard it many times but never asked. Today she did. "That's a beautiful sound," Chloe said gently, kneeling beside her. "Can I see it?" Amelia did not speak, but after a moment, she slid the music box across the floor. Chloe lifted the lid slowly. Inside, a tiny ballerina spun in place, twirling to the tune. The box was old, its lacquer slightly chipped, but well cared for. On the underside of the lid, a name was engraved. Grace. Chloe's breath caught. She had seen the name before, in an old photo by the staircase, in a whispered comment from the butler. Grace Hartley, Liam's late wife, Amelia's mother. The ballerina figure inside the box wore a miniature white tutu. Chloe remembered the video. Amelia swaying to a dancer on a stage. The same grace, the same silence. That evening, Chloe pulled out a soft rug in the sunroom, cleared space by the piano, and played a slow piece on her phone. She knelt and tapped her fingers lightly on the floor. 1 to 2, 1, 2, 3. Amelia watched, still as stone. Then, slowly, her foot moved, a light tap in rhythm. Chloe smiled and rose to her feet, letting the music guide her. Nothing complex, just a turn, a sway, a soft slide across the wooden floor. She held out her hand. Amelia stood. No words,